Yeah, let's.
We'll give people a few more minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's.
They're there to give you ideas. That's for faucet.
Madam Chair, Judge Holmes,
Yes.
I just posted a chat. I should have just spoken it out. I need to be out of here at 4:30. I have my annual eye exam.
Okay. How many fingers do you see?
That's a problem, Judge. I don't I see 1, 2, 3, 4.
That was mean. I shouldn't have done that.
I could
I
read.
apologize.
I could read when it's like this.
My gracious. Well, it's all those Florida Law Weeklies, the fine print, the documents. So I even have readers. I put them on when I need them. So
I got those.
well, I hope it won't be too much longer, but it's hard to transact business and we do have some business to transact today. Colonel Holmes, I think I'm going to have to switch out your uniform um, and put you down at the Hard Rock Stadium.
That was suspicious to me. I don't know. That was suspicious. There's no way they should have lost that one.
You know what? It brought back bad memories of the Miami Hurricanes Georgia Tech game.
Yeah, that's true.
Learn how to take a knee.
Take a knee, right? Exactly. Yep, exactly. Scary times.
I tell you, I think I could coach an NFL team. I really think I could. I could actually referee a game.
Well,
and the refs missed a lot. What's a horse collar tackle?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was. They didn't even review it either, so that surprised me. And the result.
Hurt our best player.
Yeah, exactly.
But Tua looked like he was walking in mud. Something was going on with him. Is he in concussion protocol again? I mean, it's like he was a deer in the headlight.
Yeah. I know. Falling on the turf with no one near you. Oh.
Yeah, what was that? It was.
That was strange.
That's why I thought. I said, well, maybe he hurt him. He got. He's been knocked down a couple times. I think maybe, and it was a late hit after the collar. When the tackle of Tariq, there was a late hit right in front of the ref, and they said nothing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on these days. Some of these calls.
look, these coaches make a lot of money to make calls. And Mike McDaniel, I have some serious issues when we get down like the 5 yard line and he's throwing the ball.
Yeah, some of the play calling was suspicious.
Yeah.
But hey, you know, the fact that Kansas City lost, I think there's a lot of hype, you know, with Buffalo still coming, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
But Buffalo has a lot to make up because they're 6-6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But they can
but
be
I'm
they can be the spoiler, you know.
yeah. They always are for us for some reason. Yes.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes. Do we have a call?
we need one more, Mr. Mike McLean Obel said he's going to be signing on shortly. Mr.
Excellent.
Walter's son has a medical issue that he must attend to, so he will not be on. Assistant Chief Victor London is out sick today, and so he will not be on. So my suggestion, we will get started, and then once we achieve quorum, I will let you know, and then we'll vote on we'll go on approving the agenda and the other business.
Is Miss Gaynor on?
Yes, she's on the other side.
Okay, could you bring her to the? She's got a time issue, and so
Okay,
I was gonna
no problem.
take a motion to advance numbers 4
Okay,
and
he is
5.
here.
Excellent, Miss Obel, good to see you.
My apologies.
I think it's good to see you. You haven't said what I know you're gonna say. All right, I'm gonna call us to order. We do now, according to Madam Secretary, we have a quorum present. If you all, just for the sake of those who are looking and viewing this, to introduce yourself, I'll start with me. My name is Alona Holmes, retired circuit judge, and I chair this wonderful CAB.
Colonel David Holmes, Executive Director for Department of Law Enforcement, Broward County Sheriff's Office.
Hello, Phillips, EJJ Advisory.
Michael Bell, Presidency of Community-Based Connection, Community Stakeholder.
Gordon Weeks, Public Defender's Office, Public Defender.
Marsha Allison, NACP, Board Secretary Chair.
And also, we have Mr. Bush from the Department of Juvenile Justice and Ms. Gaynor from Broward County. So we do have a quorum present, so we're going to go on with our meeting. I'm mindful that Ms. Gaynor and Judge Robolo have conflicts and they have to leave a little early. So I'm going to try to get the matters that we need to address advanced. Before we approve the agenda, I'd like to have a motion made to advance Ms. Gaynor's reports. That would be numbered items on your agenda 4 and 5 from the data work group and the civil citation.
Move approval of moving items 4 and 5 to the beginning of the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any other advancements to the agenda that need to be made other than those that have been just moved and seconded? All right, then I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda at this time. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda will be advanced as amended. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the last board meeting of November?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the last board meeting for November.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there, I mean, the recording stands as it is. So are there any corrections, deletions, additions, any opposition to voting on the minutes, the video minutes? All right, all in favor of approval of the minutes of the November meeting, please signify by either raising your hand or stating aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion carries. All right, at this time, I'm going to forego the chair's report, and I really didn't have a report. I'm still working with Madam President of the NAACP, who is our secretary of this board, to meet with Mr. Licata and the school board. I have a long list of things that I'd like to discuss with him. So when that happens, we will report out on that. At this time, because it's been advanced, the report from the data work group, and I want to start off by saying thank you to Mr. Weeks for chairing the committee and for all of the committee members, and a special thank you to Ms. Gaynor, who, when I called her, I watched the video of the minutes of the meeting from November. As you all know, I had to leave early, and there were some wonderful things that were announced, certain recommendations. I asked Ms. Gaynor to put those recommendations in writing, and I apologize. Many of you received the emails of the recommendations today, and so we don't necessarily have to vote on them if you all have any unreadiness. And the committee was suggesting at the last meeting things that should be done, but the board has to approve what the committee has done. So we'll address all that we can today, and if we need to table something for the January meeting, we can certainly do that. So Ms. Gaynor, thank you. So I'm gonna turn the floor to you and Mr. Weeks for a rundown and a summary of what we said last week, and thank you for putting it in concise form. To date, there were 5 issues that were identified and a lot of recommendations from the committee. So Mr. Weeks, Ms. Gaynor, the floor is yours.
Madam Chair, I'm going to ask that we handle them one at a time, and I'm going to ask Ms. Gaynor to present them. And if there needs to be action on that, Madam Chair, I'll defer to you on taking action if necessary from the board. So Ms. Gaynor, if you want to start with item number 1 and its recommendation.
Absolutely. As I address the item, I just want to kind of give a brief summary of what the issue is and then the recommendation, if that's okay. Okay, so the first issue is that some law enforcement agencies have added civil citation exceptions that are specific to the municipalities that they represent. These exceptions interrupt the consistency throughout the countywide process and encourage bias. An example of this is that a youth in loitering in Sunrise can receive a civil citation, but if that same youth under the same conditions was in Coral Springs, they would be arrested. The recommendation for that is that the stakeholders meet with the city managers of the agencies with operating procedures that have exclusions to the identified civil citation plan that we have that the stakeholders created within Broward County.
All right, let's have discussion as to the first issue and the recommendation.
Madam Chair, I agree. There needs to be some meeting with the city managers, and my understanding is that the state attorney through Michelle have already started doing having some of those conversations, but I think it needs to be a more concerted effort from the board with some direction from our civil citation coordinator, Ms. Gaynor. So that's my suggestion for the board to consider if there's going to be any action, potentially a motion that all of the stakeholders get together and have a conversation on which agencies, the priority of agencies, and who will be going to those meetings with those agencies as representatives.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to have the stakeholders meet with the city managers to meet to discuss the operating procedures or the policies that have been adopted by the cities that do not align with the current Broward County Juvenile Civil Citation Program. I'll open up for discussion before we vote on that motion, but it has been moved and seconded. I'll tell you my concerns with that. As you all know, the statute says that the cities can follow along with the circuit plan or come up with their own. And as you all know, and we've been discussing this since I've been on this board, many of the municipalities do not follow the circuit plan. I thought it would be helpful when we did the civil citation plan to incorporate it and have the judges on board. And the chief judge bought into it and issued an administrative order. However, that order does not mandate that the cities follow the circuit plan. We would hope that they did, but there's a statute that usurps or overrides administrative orders. However, the statute does provide that if they're not going to follow the circuit plan, that they have to show you their plan. And we discussed this way back, I think a couple of years ago, that the state attorney should call upon them. You're not following our plans. Show me what plan you're following pursuant to statute. And I don't believe that's ever been done. So, I mean, I don't want to seem like a, person that gloom and doom, but, we've sent representatives to their chiefs meetings saying, let's follow the plan. And we still have Coconut Creek and Coral Springs who are not following the plan. So I don't mind meeting with people, but my time is very valuable, and I don't like to. I'll use a biblical term. I don't like to just beat air. That's the Apostle Paul that says, "Lest I beat air, that while I preach to others, I become a castaway." So, if you all think it would help, that's wonderful. But Colonel Holmes, I mean, what can you've gone to the chiefs, you've told them. Tell me, do you think that's going to be helpful, beneficial?
I think based on my experience dealing with a lot of these police chiefs throughout the county, as you stated, Madam Chair, there seem to be a few of the repeat offenders that are resistant to following in line with what we have set up, the program that's set up. The municipalities that we provide law enforcement services to, because their city managers buy into what we preach and our protocols at the sheriff's office, we don't have any problems with our agencies. It's those select few. And like I said, and I've said this in previous meetings, it's important for those particular city managers to call those police chiefs on the carpet. Maybe best to meet with those specific cities rather than all the city managers as a whole. But those particular cities that you mentioned, those city managers definitely need to be on board with what we're doing to make sure the program is applied properly. And it's weird because you have some of the officers out there in the field. You have, some that want to participate in the program, and then you have others that are totally resistant, like that old school mentality. But here at the sheriff's office, we don't have tolerance for the old school mentality. We have our own protocols and policy and procedures, and they have to abide by it. And that's just the way it is. So going back full circle, I think it would be good to include those city managers and encourage them to support what we're trying to do. And we've been successful with the sheriff's office. You can use this as a model that, hey, it's making a difference. So I think that's a good route to take.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do know that the state attorney's office through Ms. Marcella did meet with those cities. I understand it was not a pleasant meeting. She was the state attorney's office, I won't say she, delayed in going back to discuss anything, and I believe have been reluctant to do so. And so I think it's time now to move past that. So if you, if you could meet with the janitor, if the janitor could make a decision, I think we start at the top. I know that we have commissioners who share, our opinion of how the children should be fairly disciplined, and in each one of those cities. I think the mayor of Plantation, for example, is not even aware of the issue because we haven't, and neither is we have a commissioner over there who would certainly be willing to hear. Remember that we had other cities who were reluctant to come aboard based on the chief, and so we went to the commission and the city managers, and then it became a reality. So I would certainly target those commissioners and their city managers regarding those police departments who have decided to go in a different way. And I would hope that the state attorney would go forward with his not prosecuting those as those children who should have gotten that. We would ask that I think we should ask again that he follow through on that. I mean, the agreement and the press conference was wonderful. It looked really good. But when you look at the reality of the situation, when the rubber hits the road, what do we do about those? There was no stopgap. And several officers have said, well, if they're not going to do anything about it or prosecute those kids, and why am I wasting my time arresting them? So I think we do need to follow through. And it is always a waste of time, Colonel, no offense, to go to the chief of the chief's meeting. I've been there, and it has been, they look at you for, first of all, why you in there, because y'all know each other who's not a chief. And then they sit there and they give you 5 minutes on the agenda, and then you leave, and then they go back to business as usual. So it's um, a lot of people, a lot of bravado, a lot of folk who are in there, and they don't speak for anybody but the group. They don't speak for their individual cities. So that sounds like a thing to do with the chief of chiefs, but you don't really get anything accomplished. You meet with them individually, and meet with their bosses, and then explain the issue. It's worked before, and I think it'll work again. And I think it'd be a good idea to meet with the new chiefs of police that have come aboard as well, who may not be familiar with what the issue is going on. There were several of those, and there are going to be others that are the chiefs that are going to be hired. I know that Fort Lauderdale just came aboard in the capacity of chief. I know that Sunrise is on deck. They're going to be soon. I know Plantation will be later on, next year. So, and we've had some other folk changes. So we just need to get busy with those. I think it would be a good use of my time to do that, to continue that process there, but not with the same chiefs, and not with, it's time to move on from those because they are who they are.
Colonel Holmes?
Yes, I concur. I definitely understand what you're saying, because you're right. We've gone to the Chiefs of Police Association meetings, and there's a group that no matter what you say, no matter what you propose, they're going to stick to their ideology. So it's important for us to address like she said, Madam President, the commissioners and the mayors, the commissioners, and down to the city managers, because the city commissioners are the ones that have put pressure on the city managers, and the city manager will ultimately put pressure on the police chiefs. That's probably the most productive route to take. And we do have some commissioners out there that's on board with what we're trying to do, because they see the difference that it makes. And there's some commissioners and some mayors out there that really don't know what's going on, with their departments, like she stated earlier. So whatever help you need from me on my end, I'm willing to step up and provide whatever assistance you need. I know there's several new chiefs out there, several of them I know personally. I can pick up the phone and let them know the successes that we're having here at the sheriff's office, if that'll make a difference. But I agree. This address those city officials to put the pressure on these chiefs.
Well, I agree with the all hands on deck. but you know, what we'll have to kind of lean on, because we're not a legislative body, we're an advisory body, is relationships. I'm always in favor of relationships. So if you know a commissioner, or I know a few of them, you know, that you know, we can call. A lot of people don't like cold calls, and then how we go about it. You know, as the chair of this cab, I'll go anywhere y'all tell me I need to be. I have no issues doing that. If I'm in town, if I'm not teaching, then I'm there. But
Madam Clerk,
sometimes you can pick up the phone. Yes, Mr. Weeks.
if I can interject, just like everyone pointed out, I do believe there's some benefit of having a follow-up, particularly since there's a number of new chief of police, a number of changes in administration, whether it's commissioners, mayors, or county managers. However, I think we should also try to be as informed as possible before we meet with them. I'm going to try to do I'm going to try to obtain whatever policies or procedures they have put in place with respect to individualized civil citation programs, either to get them on the record that either they have them or they don't. And, you know, there's a reluctance to even ask that question because it also encourages them to create some other process because the statute allows them to do that. But one of the things I'm going to try to narrow down is if they do have a process, when that process was put in place. And if they don't have a process, we'll at least know as effective as of this date, they didn't have one. And if they start doing something new, we'll know they're doing it based on that. So, you know, there's trying to navigate folks to move in a progressive direction pursuant to the statute should not be difficult. It's what the law is, and we're all supposed to follow the law. However, you know, folks, it's kind of strange when we're working with law enforcement officers, and the law is very clear as to what they're supposed to be doing, and they may not be following the rule of the law to the letter. So let me do a little investigation on my end to see if I can get the actual policies or procedures that they're acting under for their deviation from the civil citation program in Broward County, and then we can better educate ourselves to move forward. And I've
Ma'am,
been
so will you? Oh, I'm sorry. Who else?
Madam Chair, may I ask
Yeah.
for since you have the new police department in Pembroke Park, that might be a special case. They probably never heard of a lot of stuff. So they would probably you know, maybe a conversation with the newly minted chief there. And I think all their people kind of newly minted. Maybe there'll be a distraction from some of the drama that they got going on down in the town and all of those things. But I certainly want to make sure that that the newly formed police department would have a clue. I don't know I think it's kind of like Mayberry down there's the number of officers, but you know, I've said it would be I think they're going to need some grace and some education pieces. Not that they're not willing. I think that they're so new, they probably don't know. I don't know if they have seasoned police officers. I don't know if they were from if they were from other police departments and they were told to go away. I don't know what the makeup is, but I think we would have to, one of the people we'd have to include, which would not be on your list of folk who don't have policies, you know, that deviate from the state's plan. They probably don't have any at all because they're just, you know, they ran away from the colonel and his people, and you know, they're just kind of like out there in these streets. So can you put that on your list as we go on at the top of the list? You know.
So what I'd like to do is I think the motion that is pending that we need to vote on, that the stakeholders meet, should be amended to say we will meet after Mr. Weeks and the committee gathers gathers information as to who's got a plan, who doesn't. Because if they've got a plan, Mr. Pryor's office can ask them for it under the statute. Um, so you'd have to include Mr. Pryor in your due diligence, or Ms. Michelle, to get their plan, because as we have all echoed, going into a cold meeting without certain facts, and not having things, your ducks in a row, it's like showing up in court thinking you're going to win an argument. And I don't like to wing arguments. I can win a few of them, but I like to be able to, show through the evidence. This is what we've got. This is, this is the data from your city, your town, and we want to speak to you about it. I don't mind stepping out and doing that. So, Mr. Weeks, you also pointed out a very poignant issue, that because this is holiday time, it's going to be hard to pin people down and get an audience with them. And that's why I basically was just trying to wait until January to do a lot of this stuff. But if you can get me in this year with somebody, I'll go. Otherwise, I'll enjoy my holiday time off. The same with Miss Gaynor. She knows through her work and the certain relationships she's built. If you, I'll put it the way the young people say: if you got a hookup, I need to know about it, so I can get in there and speak on behalf of this board to make sure that we get some kind of uniformity in Broward County, especially since the demise or the sunsetting of Promise. So, Ms. Gaynor, you wish to be heard on that before we take the vote to at least agree to meet the stakeholders, but provided that we have the information that Mr. Weeks and you are going to provide us.
I have a little question.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's the will of the board, but I just want to say this, and it has been a help in the past as we move through the process of addressing the issue. The Broward delegation doesn't always know what's going on, and they also represent their cities. And I would say that to say that it does make a difference when things are changing. And a lot of times they don't know. And I know they think because it starts with them, but not always to where we are right now. So that may be an avenue you want to think about. It would never hurt, because
you read my mind. I was going to hold off on seeking legislative action before we could, because I got to be honest with you. These problems, sometimes if they go to Tallahassee and bring it to the forefront, there are people that know how to close up the holes real quick.
Well, yeah, and again, but within the district, though, even just being fair to those legislators who don't know what's going on. And so not so much to, do this, but so much to be like, I need, to know what's going on. So that was just my thought as we move forward, to keep that on the agenda, because that's going to play an important role, I could tell you.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I do have a message for President Ellison for the NAACP. I had a conversation with Michael Gottlieb, and he says he doesn't hear from you. He doesn't see you. And
the state can do nothing for us because they don't have the authority. If they could do something for us, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They don't have the firepower to do nothing. I am always in support of going to the delegation, but we generally have a net gain of nothing, simply not because the will is not there, because they don't have the votes to be there. That's why we don't have promise. That's why the law keeps changing. That's why civil citation is jacked up. So the reason I don't go from an organizational standpoint is because we got nothing. And if they would, if they could, they just don't.
But that was my sentiment.
Nice dog. He is absolutely correct. And,
but he says the invitation is there. If you ever need anything, he's there for you.
I get that. And so I do talk to other members of the delegation. They can't get us where we need to be. And then that doesn't help us in this piece. So I don't have any problem with putting them on the move to go, but that has it had to be part B, or maybe in conjunction with meetings with the people who can control the local stuff today. Only thing they could do is work for a legislative change, but they were not able to help us because this didn't change overnight. It goes back to make sure. And so I that's a very PC thing to say. but they simply are not able to deliver.
But Ella, I'll do a FYI to them. But unless they can help us locally, um, they are sort of strapped in Tallahassee. So
Right. It was
FYI,
more, it was more locally. Sometimes those conversations need to be had in tandem with what we do. But as I said, it's the will of the board. I just wanted to put that out there on the local level.
okay. All right. Anything else before we? Okay, I threw an amendment out there. So the amendment was before we the vote. The motion was to meet with the stakeholders. The stakeholders meet with the various municipalities that are not in alignment with the civil citations. And my suggestion was that we get more information, find out who we need to talk to, who would be more sympathetic. Mr. Weeks has agreed to do some investigative work along with Ms. Gaynor before we approach these people to ask for their help and insistence. So that was my amendment to get information. Is there a second to that? If not, it dies.
I'm inclined to second it, but just for process purposes, I believe the mover has to either amend
Right.
or withdraw.
No, an amendment can come from the floor, but
Okay,
it has to have a second.
so I second that amendment.
Okay, we should call them friendly amendments. Robert's Rules of Order doesn't recognize friendly amendments, so it's an amendment. So it's been seconded. So we vote on the amendment and then we vote on the main motion thereafter. All in favor of the amendment to get more information before we approach the people in the cities, the city managers and or commissioners. All in favor of that, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any
Aye.
opposition to that? All right, then the motion is that we meet with them after we get information. We don't have a time period, but we will, as soon as we get information from Mr. Weeks and Ms. Gaynor, we'll meet with them. All in favor of that original amendment, as original motion as amended, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay, any opposition? Okay, all right then. The motion carries. And so, Ms. Gaynor and Mr. Weeks, if you all, I'm going to put this on for report anyway in January. So if you run into somebody at a Christmas party, let us know. We certainly want to know. All right, Ms. Gaynor, you may proceed to the second issue.
Data shows civil citation being issued in both in the community and in schools. Recently, Broward County Public Schools eliminated the Promise program. The recommendations are to monitor school-based arrests for 6 months in light of the Promise program sunsetting to determine the impact on arrests or civil citation numbers, and after that time to provide additional data and recommendations to the board.
Discussion? Mr.
Madam
Weeks?
Chair, I think that's a very prudent approach to this. We can't really determine the impact until we see some data. Many of us are already involved in the school board's prisoner jail house pipeline committee, meaning which is also the Promise program. So watching this, specifically aligning it with the data that Ms. Gaynor collects monthly, is going to give us some insight if we see an uptick in either civil citation or arrests that are school-based, and then we can then have a next course of action. So I would move that we accept the recommendation from the committee and adopt that as the board's monitoring and then reviewing in June of this year or next year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion at this time. Can I just throw out something? Because I'm not understanding a lot of the things that are going on. We recently, as a board, discussed an issue It was a fight that happened at the Promenade Mall across from, it happened in the city of Coconut Creek, but apparently the discussion and the fussing started at the school and then ended up at the mall. And police from Coconut Creek came and made arrests at the mall and called it school-based arrest. Well, yesterday there was a fight at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I don't believe any arrests have been made. And there's some talk that, and I only know this from the news, that it didn't happen on school grounds, but it happened in a place where students are allowed to park. It's a field, and no arrests were made. And it was filmed by people, and the kids were posting what happened. It was a very, very violent fight and attack. And so, again, we have Coconut Creek on this spectrum, and Coral Springs or Parkland on a different spectrum. So that is something that we really need to keep our eyes on, how they are defining school-based arrest, and whether or not they're issuing citations. So I think that it was very prudent, the recommendation of this committee. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, if I can jump in on that point.
Please do.
That is a statistician's nightmare, trying to be able to discern that type of nuance from data, because it's all about how it is interpreted from law enforcement, whether it's on school board property, whether it is a school-related event 4 or 5 hours later in a mall, who knows? And this, I'm glad you raised this point, because this is it's an instance or an example of how data, you can game the data or game the system to make things look one way or another, when in fact it is the same exact issue, but it's impacting two different communities. And I'm very concerned about that. How can we as stakeholders, as advisory board members, advise DJJ and or our law enforcement partners on how to properly capture this data, when it all depends on what community or what school the incident is occurring in? Because you made a great point. There's the same incident that occurred on school property, and they took action hours later in a mall and then related it back to school related event. We have an incident that seems on its face looking like it occurred on school property. And I'm not suggesting they take action, but I'm suggesting that if we record action, it has to be recorded the same way across the spectrum in this community, so we can actually get a good guide on what is occurring, so we can then make good decisions on the data. So I'm glad you raised that point. I'm reading the article myself, and I am trying to make heads or tails of what's going on. But it is a statistician's nightmare trying to discern what is really being presented in the data.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what we've done in the past is work with DJJ. I think Cassandra Evans used to call it cleaning the data. So it would have to look at the school-based arrest, because the schools would be like, yeah, that, what are you calling? Our records don't show the same thing. So we compared the school's arrest data, because when if it results in whatever punishment it may be, it has to be entered in the system. So we compared the school's data with DJJ's, and it all depends on the law enforcement officer department who's going to come in. So there was a time, many times, where they've said the argument started on campus. And there was a time when kids would say, well, you can't, if I go across the street from the school, then you can't get me for the school pieces. And so their answer was, if it started at school, to charge it to the school, but school may not have anything to do with it once they were at the mall or down the street. So it would take a collaborative partnership in reviewing the data. DJJ presents its school-based arrest, and then we look at, well, if it's Board Anderson, let's look at the incidents and see what the difference is, because it has been a large problem where they didn't want to, the agencies did not want to blame the school, SROs and all this kind of stuff, and I didn't want the data to show that. So it all depends on the department, who's showing up, and what are they really trying to prove by adding it to as a school-based arrest and what accounts. So I think that's also a policy issue with agencies as well, wanting to make sure, because they monitor how many fights are at the school. Nobody wants to be at the top of the bad list, and how many school-based arrests, or if they didn't arrest the kid at all, they don't want that to show, because that's one of the things that Mr. Weeks is talking about as well, is kids who are not written up in the same way or written up at all when it comes to equity as far as and students being punished and disciplined at all. So I think that is going to be a partnership where we work together to clean the data along with the district as well.
Ms. Gaynor, you had that look on your face. Did you wish to say something? Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? I think it's a great recommendation. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye to hold off and watch out for 6 months. Okay, all that are in opposition, please signify by either speaking up or raising your hand. See no hands raised. Okay, that motion does carry. Ms. Gaynor, you got your work cut out for you. All right, the third issue, we may not finish before you have to go, but I'm really going to try to get to all of these. But the board really needs to know that this committee did some work on this issue. All right, you may proceed.
Okay. The Juvenile Justice Information System is a statewide system and not specific to Broward County. Many of the options in the JJIS dropdowns under primary reason officer chose not to issue the civil citation are conflicting with or do not apply to local policy. The recommendation is to develop a standardized practice for entering the reasons you were not issued a citation in JJIS throughout Broward County. And I put a note is that standardizing the entries will ensure the Circuit 17 data is consistent with our local program requirements and also will allow for better data analysis.
Mr. Weeks?
Madam Chair, I echo the recommendation from the committee. However, how to do this is challenging. That's where the challenge is at.
Well, that's why we're here. Part of our mission is to make recommendations to the Secretary of DJJ, Dr. Hall. It may not get done. This may be where the legislative delegation comes in also to make suggestions. So, okay, I don't know how it gets done either.
There's two ways to approach it. We can approach it on a Circuit 17 basis, trying to standardize Circuit 17 practices, or we can address it on a statewide basis, which I sorely believe it will not work. I think we have to be realistic and, biting off what we can chew. And from a standardization of Circuit 17 practices, one of the ways that it can be accomplished is there was a conversation about having the civil citation stakeholders and signatories re-meet to review the civil citation program since it's been in existence for at least 2 years. And in the revisiting of that program, we could basically have some more practices or policies outlined in that program, because the program is just very broad. And Ms. Gaynor's office, they, through the county, implement the day-to-day civil citations and the support for the civil citations. So what I'm suggesting is that the stakeholders get together sometime in the beginning of the new year and revisit the program with more specific, now that we've been using it for a little while and we see some of the problems that we have, to address those issues that we have identified, specifically this standardization of the reasons an officer chooses not to issue a civil citation. Our general program probably needs to have some more language as to that issue, to be very clear as to what each one of those things mean, and then guidance as to how to select the correct one if they're choosing not to issue the civil citation. That's my recommendation on how to get it done. And I will move that the the advisory board encourages the stakeholders or the signatories on the civil citation program for Circuit 17 to revisit the Circuit 17 civil citation program for any additions, addendums, or modification of that program to address the things that this advisory board has recognized from the implementation of the program.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right. Ella raised her hand. Ella, you gotta unmute. I did recognize her hand went up before you spoke, Colonel. So it's been moved and seconded. So basically,
Question.
yes, I was
Can
going to
you
ask you the
state-
discussion.
Yeah, can you state who the stakeholders are, Mr. Weeks?
The stakeholders are the clerk, the state attorney, the public defender, law enforcement community. Am I missing
When you
anyone?
say law enforcement community, what does that mean specifically?
It doesn't give a specific reference to a law enforcement community, but I'm going to, out of deference to the BSO, they're the largest entity in Broward County, I will invite Colonel Holmes to participate as a representative from the law enforcement community. I think would be sufficient if my memory
I
serves.
think perhaps the next largest, which is Fort Lauderdale, which is how they were at the table from the beginning. Although it pisses everybody else off, but I think that since Fort Lauderdale and BSO were with us and have been, even though we had to rough up Fort Lauderdale a little bit, we got different city manager now, and we have a new police chief, and so I think we can probably kill two birds with one stone.
You know, and that also accomplishes two things. You know, the sheriff's offices are traditionally constitutional officers, and local law enforcement departments are chiefs of police. So we would have the sheriff's office along with the largest representative from the chiefs of police, which would be Fort Lauderdale Police Department, and those two folks can represent the law enforcement community. So I do believe that is a good compromise to make sure we have a voice from the law enforcement community, being the sheriff and or the chiefs of police.
Madam Chair,
Colonel Holmes? Yes, Colonel Holmes.
if I may add something. I think we talked about it a while back, if my memory serves me correctly, when we talked about adding another item to the Dropbox, the other category where the officer or the deputy can articulate exactly why they weren't issued a civil citation for various reasons. It could be something that's never been, experienced before or whatever. But I remember us a while back talking about that, adding that extra box where we can articulate that. I assume that would definitely make a huge difference too with improving the program.
Well, when we make our recommendations, after the stakeholders have met, and they make whatever addendums, modifications to the program, we can present that back to the advisory board, and DJJ can get a copy of that as well.
Okay.
If they choose to modify their statewide program to include more clarity on those drop-down menus, we would love that. But from what we're standing on, we at least define and explain what each one of those categories mean and encourage them to use it across the board consistently. I think that's what Ms. Gaynor has identified in that committee when we were meeting and having conversations about it.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
I do have a question, and then I'll continue the discussion if needed. after a lot of work to come up with the civil citation plan for the 17th, we included the 17th Judicial Circuit. We got an administrative order from the Chief Judge. Do you think it prudent to add a designee of the Chief Judges to your meetings? They may not have a say, but sometimes inviting them to the table since there's an administrative order, because it may take an amendment to the current administrative order. So
You know what, Judge, that's you are 100% on point. I would defer to Judge Robolo as to who we would direct that to.
it would be him, since he's the designee of the Chief Judge. Like
I
I
would
said,
also Judge Robolo's I would also direct it to the general counsel for the circuit and Judge Robolo. If that would that be okay, Judge Robolo, Mr. D'Amico, along with yourself?
I can have Judge Williams talk to Judge Tudor and our general counsel, Mr. D'Amico, and then I would suspect it would either be Judge Williams or myself.
Okay.
If
I
you can't do that.
will have you or Judge Williams included on that invitation process.
I'm just going down the chain of command.
all right, there's a motion pending made by Mr. Weeks and been seconded by Ms. Phillips to have the committee, and we've already established who the committee members. We haven't specified who they are, but you all, the clerk, the Office of the State Attorney, Office of the Public Defender, law enforcement will be represented by a BSO in Fort Lauderdale, as well as a representative for the 17th Judicial Circuit. That will be the committee members, and Mr. Weeks, as always, when I put a committee together, I'll ask you to chair the committee so that you can get everybody together. And I have one more question before we vote. Do you want a community stakeholder? We do have some on this board. But you know what, I'll let you all meet and make that determination. Because basically all of you all are doing is following the statute. But you know, I'm just throwing it out there so for transparency's sake. So I don't think we had community representation when we did the initial civil citation agreement, but I'm just trying to be inclusive if it's possible. But I'll let you make that
raise a good
decision.
point. I would encourage a volunteer from the advisory board, the community representative, to also participate in the civil citation program. Mr.
I
O'Bell.
volunteer.
I was gonna. I
Madam
thought your
President.
hand was up. I was gonna say I volunteer. The president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Done. Madam Chair, can I also make a brief report? I'm looking through my files and I recognize that this is a repeat of what we've done in the past. Back in 2021, we were in the process of creating the civil citation program, and we did retain or received from a number of law enforcement agencies, not all of them, but a number of them, their civil citation procedures. I will distribute that to the members of the board and then try to update that with any new information.
Excellent, thank you. All right, all in favor of the motion to form or reform the committee to look at the current civil citation plan and make recommendations for corrections or additions to the advisory board. That's the motion. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand. All right, all opposed, please signify the same way, either raise your hand or say something. All right, hearing nothing, then that passes. So Mr. Weeks, at the beginning of the year. If you'll CC me on your date and time, sometimes I just like to sit in and listen because I like to throw out statutes to you every now and then. Keeps me on my toes. All right.
I'll be typing, Judge.
Okay. All right, Miss Gaynor, I'm trying to. We're close. The floor is yours.
Okay, the next one is a general recommendation, but it applies to 3 and number 5. And basically it's changes, the issue is changes to the local program requirements will require stakeholders to be retrained. The recommendation is that I will continue to send my team to stakeholders at the Juvenile Assessment Center as well as law enforcement to provide updates relating to changes of policy and procedures.
Mr. Weeks? You're on mute.
Madam Chair, that recommendation is, I think, we should move to adopt that recommendation that Ms. Gaynor continue the training that she does in this respective area. I think it's important that with the change of leadership in a number of these agencies, a number of these cities, it's going to be a constant training issue that we have to embrace and recognize that it has to be a priority for us to keep going back over and over and over and echoing what needs to be done. So my motion would be to adopt the recommendation of the committee that Ms. Gaynor continue her training initiatives and continue to report to the advisory board on how that's being received and how that's being adopted with the folks that she meets with.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of that motion signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion has been moved, seconded, and approved and adopted by this board. I will never turn down training. No way. All right, Ms. Gaynor, number 5. This is the most comprehensive. I've tried to get to it before the 4:30 mark. You may proceed.
Over 60% of the time, an eligible youth is not offered a civil citation as an alternative to arrest. It is coded in JJIS as reason not available or provided by law enforcement or by LEO. The recommendation is that Justice Services staff will provide training to the local data entry staff. Again, that staff is at the Juvenile Assessment Center. It may be at the clerk as well in some cases. That we provide them training, and also it will cover the importance of the collecting the data, the reason why we do it, and can be added to our current civil citation training that we already provide. And we typically provide that annually, but in many cases it's more frequently because of staff turnover at the JAC. The second recommendation is just to create a visible reminder to be posted at the juvenile assessment as a reminder to law enforcement to provide a reason why the civil citation wasn't issued, as well as a reminder to the staff to request a reason if they haven't received one.
Madam Chair, I think this is a very clear, direct request from the advisory board committee. And since we have a representative from the Department of Juvenile Justice directly online for this advisory board, I'm not even sure we need to have a motion, but I think the motion would be to adopt the recommendation to have some signage established in our JAC that reminds and encourages law enforcement officers to specifically note if they are when they choose not to issue a citation, to correctly fill in that bubble, because that is our checks and balances and accountability that we need to determine that this program is being utilized fairly across the community. So the simple motion is to follow the recommendation of the committee and to issue the signage in the JAC. We have Colonel Holmes, who is responsible for staffing the JAC, and we have Mr. Bush, who is responsible for the JAC in and of itself from DJJ. And if they both adopt or accept those recommendations, that would be a lot easier for us as an advisory board.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Bush, do you see any opposition to signage to remind officers to do what they're required to do?
No, Madam Chair. Actually, I've already instructed my staff at the Jack to when they do see those kids coming in with those minor misdemeanors to encourage the officers to use civil citation. So we're kind of already in that process. We're already in that flow already. So this is, this will only be a plus.
Well, is there a category because I don't want to?
I don't
Only
think it is.
in plantation.
I saw the
Only
sheet,
in
and I don't think
plantation,
that's
Madam
up
Chair.
there.
We did see that before from a plantation officer.
Yeah, because I don't want to.
You won't hear that from BSO, I'll tell you that.
Okay, all right.
Because if you,
All right, well, Mr. Weeks has made his motion that we adopt the recommendations in paragraph A and B of item 5. And I've just thrown in a question to find out about us having things posted on the walls of the Jack, since those walls don't belong to us. But Mr. Bush has indicated that they've already begun to do that. Okay, so is there a second to Mr.
Second.
Weeks' motion? All right, it's been moved to second. Any further discussion?
I'd love to hear from the Colonel regarding this, because I know he's been working with us on that stopgap as well, if I could, Madam Chair.
I think this is a great
Not a
idea.
problem.
I think it's a great idea. I think it helps those that's on the fence with whether or not they wanted to do the right thing. However, I think it boils back to what we discussed earlier, addressing these issues with these police agencies from the top, and making sure that they're on board with what we're trying to do and the reason why we're trying to do it. And there shouldn't be discretion if you're doing the right thing. What I'm saying is that you should never ever have an officer say, "Oh, I'm not doing it because I don't want to do it." But there's some protocol in place that the officer should abide by. And if I know our agency, we have a policy in place, we have our protocols, and if they don't abide by that, then they have to give an explanation. If their explanation isn't valid, then they will be disciplined, held accountable for their actions or their misactions. So. I agree with the signage. I think that's good because those that's uncertain or on the fence, it will hopefully push them the right way. So I like that idea.
I do have one quick question. Ms. Gaynor, there are some suggested definitions and things that you've placed here, and we want to discontinue the use of that. That's for the Broward citation. That's our drop down, or is that a state mandated drop down? For instance, you say civil citation not available, discontinue use of this selection because civil citation is available throughout the Broward County.
Right. Yes. So with these suggestions were made with the idea of standardizing how we in Broward County utilize the drop downs, because we understand that the state won't change the drop downs for us. So the recommendation is just for something like civil citation not available. Well, in Broward County, we should never select that because we have a countywide program. So civil citation, there's no reason for civil citation to not be available. So that's why.
Can your Jake, your IT people, like for instance, make sure that doesn't come up as a drop down? Or what are the law enforcement officers using, the Broward system or the state system?
So the easy thing about this is that law enforcement won't enter this. So whenever there's a youth whenever it's entered into JJIS, it's either Mr. Bush's staff or one of their contract providers. So law enforcement wouldn't issue it. It would be them entering into the system and selecting an option from a drop down.
Mr. Bush, is that doable, or you have to get permission from Mount Sinai? Tallahassee.
They got to get permission from that with that judge. I know that when the officers arrive and the screener recommends civil citation, they give them a form to actually fill out. then they actually check off that box. So once they check off that box, that screener goes in and puts that information in. So I would have to probably get permission for that, but that's how that process usually goes into JAG.
All right. Well, basically, all we're trying to do is get a reason, and that's too generic, not available. We want to know if it's available, but you're not using it. That's the reason. So you all formulated these. You all being DJJ formulated these drop downs, but we're not getting that, and you can't collect data on not available. So they're your people. They work for you, and we just voted that we were trying to get as much information, a reason for not issuing a citation, a civil citation. So, I mean, what can you all do to help us get reasons? I feel like Tracy Chapman when I deal with DJJ. Give me one reason, just to stay here. So. I mean, we're not asking for a change in statute or anything like that. It's just a change in, I guess, your training to insist on a reason. Even if the officer says, "Because I don't want to," is there somewhere where they can write that on a piece of paper? Officer says, "I don't want to," in quotes, and because we need to know.
Mhm.
Well, Your Honor, like I said before, once that when that officer gets there, if they're not going to choose civil citation, the screener gives them that form to fill out, and that's when they check off the box or document the reason why they're not giving the civil citation. So once that's done, that screener takes that, and that's where that's information.
Yeah, but that's a lazy way because the screen says it's not available. That's not really the reason why they're not doing it.
Right.
Or the offense involved weapons or firearms. The recommendation was to discontinue use of that because it's accounted for under ineligible. Or it may says youth or parent refused to participate. Or the charge does not qualify. Because it's a lot of this is under the ineligible, or the youth refuse to admit guilt. To my knowledge, you don't have to admit guilt to get a citation. So I don't understand that because they're not entering into like a deferred prosecution program. I know that's just the state, but I mean, it can't be used against them, right? When they go into a deferred prosecution, Ms. Mashala, do they have to admit guilt or something? Last time I heard, all they had to do was waive speedies.
Right. I don't know if I haven't looked at the verbiage in a long time on the affidavit. So you're correct, Madam Chair, that the waiver of speedy is essential. I'm not sure, and maybe Colonel Holmes knows or Chief Bush, if the actual affidavit also suggests that they have to admit guilt. I'm not sure, but I agree with you. I'm always curious as to why I don't know technically that you have to admit guilt. You just have to accept that you're willing to do the civil citation program and waive speedy. Right. That should be sufficient.
Mr. Weeks, maybe that's something your office needs to be looking into. If these youth are having to admit guilt to get a citation, and so when I saw that bothered me. Because even judges can't use lack of remorse anymore.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I ask either you or Mr. Weeks, does statute speak to the officers giving a reason for denying an eligible child a civil citation?
No.
Perhaps it should.
Madam Chair,
You all mentioned earlier about reaching out to our electeds.
The delegation.
Maybe that would be the perfect opportunity there.
All right, I'm making a note of that.
hurry up because there's a bill pending to get rid of
Police review
police
boards.
citizen advisory review boards. That's House Bill 601. And it's one of the reasons given because we can't recruit police officers to come to the state of Florida. So if you get rid of oversight, I guess they'll come. I'm just saying.
Remove accountability.
Yeah, well. All right, well, the motion, I just pointed these out because it goes to the grain of why we're voting on number 5. Number 5 is good, but you know, and I think we've approved it, but you know, as Ms. Gaynor pointed out in these recommendations from the committee, we need to be able to know why a child has not been afforded the opportunity for the citation. So the committee will, if the committee will continue to review that, then we'll take this to vote. The motion was to adopt the recommendations under number 5, issue number 5, provide training to JAG staff to get the primary reason why the officer chose not to issue a citation, and then to put the signs up on the walls. Remember officers to give us the reason you're not offering the civil citation. See, if they were BSO, all you had to do is put a picture of Colonel Holmes up near that picture. That would kind of remind them, you know, to give a reason. Mr. Weeks, a question before we vote?
No, Madam Chair, I was voting.
Okay. All in favor of the recommendations of the committee as to issue number 5, raise your hand by signifying aye or say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? No opposition. Those are the vote carries. And those are this committee's recommendations. And please let me know if there's any way I can help. I do speak in tongues. I mean, I speak in statutes. I can bring you some case law if necessary. Ms. Gaynor, anything further with regard to the data-driven decision-making subcommittee's report and recommendations?
No, I have nothing further.
All right, then missed opportunities. I've left you with 13 minutes. Can you get it done in 13 minutes?
Okay. Yes, I can.
Okay. Civil citations and mixed. Yes.
I have the missed opportunities for the month of November. There were 11 missed opportunities. However, 6 were not eligible due to our circuit plan. So there were 5 true missed opportunities. Of the missed opportunities, 3 came from Coral Springs, 1 from Davie Police Department, and 1 from Hollywood Police Department.
0 from BSO, right?
0 from BSO.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Record show.
Can you go train these other departments, Colonel Holmes, just as a pro bono service?
I'm trying, Madam Chair, I'm trying.
All right, so what did Coral Springs miss? I always like to hear them first.
Okay.
All LMPs, weren't they?
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna tell you exactly what they were.
The judges would just dismiss them outright because they ain't following 856. They'll stop.
Madam Chair, I could probably speak to this because I looked into the cases individually before.
Okay, Ms. Michelle, help us out.
My apologies for being delayed today. I was in another meeting prior to this one. So one of the cases from Coral Springs was a battery, misdemeanor battery. It appears to be a one-on-one. They probably should have given an explanation, harking back to the conversation we just had as to why they didn't issue it. But we know it's Coral Springs. 2 of the other Coral Springs cases were a co-defendant case, essentially, that started off really as a burglary conveyance. And ultimately they arrested for a loitering and prowling, but it did involve potentially breaking and entering into a vehicle with the victim on scene. And then the Davie case is a trespass on school grounds with a disrupt a school function. That case is an interesting fact pattern, kind of concerning. So I kind of understand why they may not have wanted to issue the civil citation in that case, because the student did not belong there. And we know in light of today's culture, that's a concern. And then the
That's
Hollywood,
always a trespass. You don't belong there.
it's a trespass on school grounds, and
Well, I understand.
yeah,
Were
but
they a former student or anything
student
that
that should,
stands out?
former
Maybe
graduate.
they were going there to enroll for classes.
Yeah, I read the reports and it was a little creepy. So, and then the final one was a Hollywood case, a resisting without violence, but also a reckless driving because there was some type of stunt race car driving that these kids were doing in a parking a lot near in Hollywood. So kind of dangerous activity. So I think that's probably why they did not issue the civil citation. Although again, I don't know that they gave an actual explanation.
Mr. Weeks?
Madam Chair, a lot of folks can argue about this process, but this process is very, very helpful because without the deep dive into the probable cause affidavits, we don't know if law enforcement is actually using the program appropriately. And this is where an assessment of whether they're using proper discretion is being had. So I appreciate Ms. Michelle clarifying some facts around the actual charge, because trespass is on its face, you should get a civil citation. But I also can balance out, the safety concerns around schools, and creepy folks just appearing on schools grounds and things of that sort, where an officer may feel, they don't want to issue a civil citation. They want to have a little bit more higher level response. So I'm not critical of the decisions, but I think the information is what we have to recognize is important as an advisory board, because like things look on paper, they may look one way, but when you dig a little bit deeper, we may find, hey, those officers use good
Yeah.
sound discretion. Or we may find, hey, like we in this other instance, they're not using good sound discretion because they're issuing or they're arresting kids on school for things that occurred off school campus, and they're doing it on different schools a different way. So it's the process of this advisory board doing this little bit digger deep look, I think is very helpful to make sure that there's proper checks and balances across all aspects of law enforcement.
And Ms. Gaynor, real quick, can you give me the demographics and then I'll get further discussion? That's what I want to know.
2 Black, 3 Hispanic, 1 male, 1 female, 4 male.
Okay, so 2 Black males? You said 2 Blacks. Are they male, female?
1 second.
All right, thank you.
1 Black female, 1 Black male, and then there were 3 Hispanic male.
Colonel Holmes?
Yes, just to follow up with the Public Defender Week stated, I concur wholeheartedly, because whenever we have a missed opportunity, the deputies are required to give an informative report as to why they refuse to give civil citation. And I looked at some of my older ones, and I have multiple that involve firearms. And without a clear explanation, because they were involved in carjackings and firearms recovered, you wouldn't know. You would know that. So it's important to find out the details. And the fact that we're making them articulate that is good. They have to give an explanation, and they do. And that way, I can tell you from a BSO standpoint, they know that we're taking this seriously, and they understand the importance of, applying the civil citation program correctly. So it's educational too, as far as having the proper enforcement.
I agree. And it's good for statistics. So that when somebody looks and says, oh, they arrested all these Black males, or well, this is the reason why. We have a reason, but when we don't, then, the first thing you're thinking is something nebulous is going on here. So I enjoy engaging in this. And Ms. Michelle was so prepared for me today, making me nervous, Ms. Michelle. All right. Anything else from Ms. Gaynor? Because I've got to let her go, and then Judge Robolo is going to leave us. So I think I've covered all the things that we needed to vote on today. That's why I wanted to advance the agenda. So anything else, Ms. Gaynor?
The last thing is that there were 4 community-based missed opportunities and 1 school-based, and that was from Western High School.
Western. Ooh. I hadn't heard that school called out in years. Can you tell me what it was
some
for?
data on that, Madam Chair?
Yeah, yeah. Ms. Gaynor's looking that up real quick.
That was the trespass case, trespassing on school grounds.
And what about the 4 other community base? Where were they from?
You're muted, Ms. Gaynor.
I was muted, I'm sorry. The Davie was the school base. The community referrals came from Coral Springs and Hollywood.
All right. Any questions of Ms. Gaynor before I release her? She's got 4 minutes left with us. She's training staff today, so it's the first time she got them all under one roof.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Ms. Gaynor because we lean on her very heavily in the committee, and she does an excellent job. We don't say it publicly over there at the county. She needs to be recognized for the great work she does for the county and administering the civil citation program.
I think she ought to get a raise.
I do too. She's a wealth of knowledge over there, and she's a backbone for this advisory board. So thank you, Ms. Gaynor.
Thank you, Ms. Gaynor. And I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very prosperous and blessed New Year also, if I don't see you before then.
Same to you and everyone else on the board. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Judge Robolo is going to be leaving us in 3 minutes because he can't tell how many fingers he sees there. You doing good? All right then. Judge Robolo, did you have anything pressing for this board before you log off?
Other than to wish you a Merry Christmas and everyone else Happy Holidays, Judge, I can't think of anything. I've been on detentions this week, nothing glaring, although I suspect that tomorrow I might have a case in detentions that was in the papers.
Well, Feliz Navidad, and I always forget how to say a prosperous new year, but I know it's años.
How to say
prosperous new year.
Prospero año.
Prospero año. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's
Happy
go back
holidays.
on. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. We're going back on the agenda. Mr. Obel and Colonel Holmes, the report from the Alternative Prevention Work Group. Did you all get everybody together and meet? I think that's what we were waiting for. And please include me on your meeting.
As of right now, Madam Chair, we have had some conversation about scheduling a meeting. I know there's been some challenges with the holidays and things coming up, so we may have to look for in January to have this meeting because schedule conflict. And to be quite frank, I was out for 4 weeks in November because I was battling severe level of the flu, so I was not able to attend. And I know when I came back, things was a little bit difficult on the other side as well. So we'll postpone, but I will say we have received some referrals from VSO in that area. So we're working with some families. So we actually had a family that was completely homeless, with a young lady with 2 kids who was homeless. And we was able to put them in a hotel and help them find coverage and also help them find employment. So we're working with families and we're getting referrals slowly but surely.
Colonel Holmes?
Yes, I spoke with Captain Hofstein last week, and I spoke with Lieutenant Cade. I guess, Mr. Obel, they've been in contact with several of your personnel, your staff members there have been working closely with you. We definitely want to set up the meeting for after the new year. the larger meeting in preparation for the larger event that we're going to be taking place in the spring. But the district command is excited to work with his staff, and they said that we're heading in the right direction. And we have a neighborhood response team there too that have tons of resources that they can assist the community with. So, and not only right there in the district, they can tap into the resources we have downtown. So they'll be very, very beneficial to the residents of Deerfield Beach. So, but we look forward to improving and making that partnership even stronger after the new year.
Yeah.
Any questions of Colonel Holmes or Mr. Obel? Thank you, gentlemen. And just keep me posted on the date and time. I always like to be in the room where it happened.
Oh, well, you will receive an invitation. We're going to send invitations out to many of the board members, whoever can make it. So we want to.
Oh, and don't forget to invite Assistant Chief London, because they want to imitate what Deerfield is doing, and hopefully, in 2024 we can expand the program to beyond the borders of Deerfield, Pompano, to Fort Lauderdale, as well as other needed areas, hotspots. So thank you both, gentlemen, for what you do for this.
Madam Chair, I do owe both Assistant Chief London as well as Madam President Mandel CP a visit to their, I think it's the last Wednesday of the month meeting, to hear what some of the challenges are. So starting off next year, we'll be doing that listening and seeing what the needs are before a lot of them.
Madam Chair, if I can,
You may.
I like that shirt that Mr. Obell's wearing.
Well, everybody can't have it, brother. Only people understand that.
Don't get him started. You notice when he's giving his report, he's real low key. Then you start talking about Omega, and then if you start talking about Dallas, the man wakes up. I'm trying to keep him asleep. So, Miss Obel,
you want to keep me asleep, so we talk about the Dolphins.
But I love that. I love that shirt he's wearing. He wears it very well too. So I had to.
All right, moving on.
Miss Chair don't want me to, Madam Chair don't want me to talk about the Dolphins lost so bad, so bad.
Okay, I gotta move on, Mr. Obel. I'll deal with you at the end of this meeting. I can handle it. All right, let's go to the school. Let me ask, are there any questions of Colonel Holmes or Mr. Obel regarding their report? All right, no hands up. I will move on. School Disciplinary Committee report. Madam Secretary, Madam President Ellis.
Well, we went to the soon to be formerly known school to prison pipeline. I guess it's not very PC to say that, so they're looking for another name. And I'm sad to say that little to no progress was made. They started off in the newly formed would-be vision and mission, talking about kids that are accused of committing severe infractions, but that's not what this program is. The other disciplinary continuum has to deal with children, who are more severe infractions. And so we kind of had to spend a lot of time backing that up. That wasn't a very good use of our time. They seem to be reluctant to do really a history about what this program really is. I would imagine it being tugged in different ways. So not really satisfied in what we're doing, not a good use of our time, I don't particularly think, but we have to be there, Ms. Michella, Mr. Wiggs, Ms. Phillips, in order to make sure they get something done and stay on track. They're kind of all over the place now, balancing between the two different sides. I would like to know, if I could, Madam President, what is the contact name and email, Colonel, that we could put on for BSO that I could give to Mr. Hepburn to make sure that BSO is represented? If you could text me that would just be great, so that I can make sure that they are sending it to the right person, so that BSO can be in the room. So far, I think it's Pembroke Pines, it's their own school, police retired at Fort Lauderdale, and I think Hollywood on occasion is there. But they're the two largest agencies are not there for whatever reason. I'm sure they may be not including maybe I don't know who they're including so for Fort Lauderdale, if anybody. Historically they have refused to go back and get those people who were with us at the beginning for whatever reason. But I like to be able to put at very minimum to put someone from your agencies on. So we are yet holding on, Madam Chair, but it is not going well and quickly enough. So we can say some real progress that's there in my mind. Want to see it happening. We ain't there yet, because this is the first entry into the program, into disciplinary. We're talking about juvenile behavior that is being criminalized, not kids who were with knives, guns, weapons, any of those things. They got that part of it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just regular juvenile behavior that has been criminalized, and we want to make sure that if there's an assessment done prior to an arrest and or civil citation, and if there isn't, that we make sure that resources are given to those family or to those children to keep her from going deeper into the system or deeper into that behavior piece there. So that's kind of in a nutshell the way I saw it. And after talking to those folk there, got a lot of work to do.
Well, you're the right person for the work to do. I appreciate you going there and then bringing us back information. It's just a sad state to see that our children are held to a higher standard in terms of their behavior. Folks have forgotten that children are children. They do childish things. We may not like it, but they don't process facts and information and environments the way we do. And even some adults do stupid stuff, okay? Childish stuff. And we don't face the same recriminations that our children do. So thank you for attending. Mr. Weeks?
Madam Chair, I'd like to echo Madam Secretary and Madam President's comments, but I also like to add that we've been to a number of meetings thus far, and we're still working on the mission statement. The mission statement. The mission statement. That's how far we've gotten thus far. Ms. Michelle has been at every meeting. Ms. Ellis has been at every meeting. Myself, Ms. Phillips has been at every meeting, been a number of folks from the community at every meeting, and we're still at the mission statement. And that's not a criticism on Broward schools. That's just a comment on how much work goes into this issue.
Well, how long are your meetings? Let me ask you that.
They're upwards of an hour and a half.
Y'all can come up with 3 or 4 lines in that time. I don't see what the problem is.
Because it's trying to keep people on task, because there are so many different agendas that folks want to use this to accomplish. And it's just trying to focus on trying to address those most minor instances of conduct that should not result in arrest, not guns in school, not, all that other stuff in school. And everyone wants this to be the fix for everything in school, and there lies the problem. That's what happened to Promise, because it was effective, it was working, and they said, let's throw the kitchen sink at it. We're going to throw everything into that. And it's a very discreet, well-designed program to address a very small, it's a limited group of children, but everybody wants it to be the catch-all and fix for every problem in school. And that's why we're still at the mission statement.
Any questions of Ms. Ellison regarding her report on the school disciplinary committee? All right, moving along. Juvenile domestic violence reports. I know we don't have Mr. James here, but we got Ms. Mashala here. Mr. Mashala, has the number
Mr.
gone up?
James is on the other side. At least
he's on the other side. Can Madam Secretary, can you bring him over? Let them in the room for about 5 minutes, and then we'll put them out again. I'm teasing. Mr. James, you there?
He has to accept, and he's not doing that.
Because he just put it up there. Where is he, Mr. Weeks? He works for
He
you.
probably left for the day.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You know.
All right. Well, let's see.
There he is.
John James, come on in the room.
I'm gonna need you not to say I left for the day when my boss is on the line. I mean, Jesus Christ, man, do help sign my paychecks. I need a check. It's the holiday time. I mean, come on.
and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
I
All right.
appreciate it.
We need to know about the juvenile. And it's important that we keep talking about this so that we don't just lose them in the, they're not civil citation. They got arrested. What happened to them? That's why we keep bringing it up in these meetings. So what did you and Miss Michelle find out?
In terms of what, I'm sorry, I missed the question, Your Honor.
Domestic violence on juveniles. Remember that was the thing that we had you really do a deep dive in.
Right. So in doing that deep dive, the numbers are still the numbers. There's going to always be consistently with domestic violence, but I think we've had a lot of improvement and movement with the respite issue, with trying to piggyback on what Miami-Dade is doing and bringing, I want to say it's Bridge, if I'm not mistaken, Project Bridge. With that, we also was able to implement safety plans with the children. So whenever a parent is looking to potentially agree to allow the child to come on earlier than the 21 days, although the child doesn't qualify for 21 days, but there's a respite issue, but they want to put something in place in order for safety and protection. We have the Smiths community participating with us with creating these safety plans. And what was interesting is that we've been in court and been able to see how these safety plans are actually working with the children using some of the I guess you could say pointed behavior that they should do, or the things that they should do from a therapeutic standpoint whenever they get upset and they're dealing with issues with their parent. So we've been able to see that. So I don't think it's something that's going to ever go away. However, we have been very vocal with pushing things in the right direction. And actually, Ms. Brown is on, and she can definitely probably speak more to both of those issues because she she was very instrumental with setting up the meeting for the safety plans, and also with keeping us on task with the respite care and providing us with numbers, a monthly number there regarding what our numbers look like in terms of kids that come through for domestic violence and how many are staying inside of the detention center. So I don't know if you want more information from Ms. Brown.
I do. The more information I get, the better I am.
And Ms. Brown, I hate to throw you. I didn't mean to throw this on you. However, I do know that you have
He's throwing you to me, Miss Brown. He's throwing you. He wanted to say under the bus, but he can't call me a bus, so he just said, "I hate to throw you in there." All right, Miss Brown, I like her, so I'm gonna be nice to Miss Brown. Miss Brown, tell me about these juveniles. Yeah.
Well, we last month we had eight juveniles who were arrested for domestic violence. Of the 8 youth who were arrested for domestic violence, 1 remained in the detention center because he needed a higher level of care. So when the youth are arrested for domestic violence, and if all parties agree, I'm sorry, I'm having a little problem here. If all parties agree, then the court orders what is known as an integrated family safety plan, where Smith Community Mental Health, there's a care coordinator who goes into the home. They work with every family member in the home, and they create a plan for the family. And they've been very successful. Sometimes they find out going into the home that there's a sibling in the home or a family who's in need of maybe financial assistance or some other needs, and they help the family meet those needs. And this is Broward Behavioral Health Coalition is funding the Smith Community Mental Health in this initiative. So thus far, we've seen some successes there.
So when you get, for instance, they come to the first appearance, and the parent is screaming, "I don't ever want this kid in my home again." How do you handle that type, especially when the battery is on the mom?
Well, it depends. Sometimes some judges will reset the case for a 24-hour review. Others will do a 48-hour review. We had one, which was just amazing last month. Instead of scheduling it for 40-hour review, the judge scheduled it for a 24-hour review. And this was a family who the child was placed in the care of the mother and of this woman and man. They were the legal guardians. There was a prior dependency case. So the family was thinking about reopening that dependency case and placing the child back into the system or into dependency system. And what happened, Smith Community Mental Health went to the detention center, met with the child, started to develop that plan, and then met with the mother and the father, the legal guardians. And amazingly, the father, after a couple of days, says, "You know, we're gonna keep this child. We're gonna continue to work with him." And I thought that was just because we saved a lot with that particular case, not having to reopen a dependency case, having a family continue to be in the child's life. They had been with him since the age of 9. So I thought that was a success. Although we have a couple more hearings and the state hasn't made a filing decision, but that particular case, I'll have to defer to Ms. Marcella, but it may be diverted, so we have seen some successes with this program.
And you said this is a project, this is an experimental with the Smith Community Mental Health Initiative.
Yes.
It's being funded by Broward Behavioral Health.
Yes, Broward Behavioral Health Coalition. They're funding.
Is that through a grant, or is this something that they you tell me how is that funded? Because I don't want if it's working, you want that funding to continue on.
Well, Broward Behavioral Health Coalition is the managing entity for the Department of Children and Families. So I can't speak to where they pull these funds from to fund this initiative, but it started July of this year. They offered 15 slots so they could work with 15 families. And they haven't told us no. And there have been as many as, I think we had 23 families participating in this initiative thus far. And we're tracking the data and we're just going to see what the outcomes are. But they've had a lot of success. And
does the state have to agree that they go through this, or is this a part of just pretrial release or something like this?
The state and the defense has to agree.
Okay.
Right. And it's one of those situations, Judge, where we only, and I'm sorry, Ms. Brown, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's one of those things where we only are using where the parent, they just need a little talking to, and they may agree to allow the kid to come home. So we are using it very pointed for those particular issues.
Ms. Mashala, that's 2 today. You do about the missed opportunities, and then your office is on board with this. This is wonderful. Is this my early Christmas gift? Thank you.
Because I got to commend all of the folks involved in Juvenile for being innovative in trying to address this issue, because for the life of me, I've seen this issue when I ran Juvenile and I could never wrap my head around trying to find a fix for it. But I don't know everything, and folks that are a lot smarter and a lot brighter than me came along and got creative and trying to find a way to get these children help. And it's using the resources that are already there, because it behooves Department of Children and Family Services to reunite and get these children, this family, to be stable, rather than having them removed and they enter into the system. And they're going to have to spend a whole lot more resources if that happens. So I appreciate this new group of folks down in Juvenile having a different bit of insight and being creative to try to address this problem, because it's been a long standing issue. And to hear this a success in a troubling area, I'm happy to hear that. So congratulations to all those that put their heads together to try this new approach.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I too would echo that. I mean, usually families, they just they're at a loss, they call police, and when you call police, you get police. And so they're not equipped to give these any plans or any other resources in most cases. And so this giving them an alternative, and after the police involved, allowing them to have some answers, because they're just looking for some way to somehow to work on this without, anything worse happening. So I consider this successes, and I certainly thank all the people that are involved. This is good stuff. So thank you.
It's excellent. And Ms. Brown, I can't thank you enough. You seem, quiet and gentle, but you're in there advocating for our children, and I certainly appreciate you. And thank you for the early Christmas gift. If I hadn't bothered Mr. James, I would never have known your participation in helping these children who are it's different when it's a domestic violence and it's a child, especially when they've hit their parent. We wouldn't be talking about this. We'd be asking, when's the wake? And they put her away nicely. But we have a different era and different genre now. So thank you again, Ms. Brown. I really appreciate it. Did you have anything else to add?
I just want to say it's really a team effort. I mean, I'm just so thankful for Broward Behavioral Health Coalition funding this initiative, and the Public Defender's Office, State Attorney's Office being on board. And it's just been really a team effort.
Well, thank you. You know what? You're the LeBron James, and you thank you the team. We know you was out there. That was you. You're our greatest of all time for these domestic violence. So this, I will tell you, this will be a long-standing part of our reporting for this advisory board, because as President Ellison pointed out, a lot of times the kids would get arrested for domestic violence, and we had no stats on them. We don't know what happened to them. So I certainly appreciate you being here and being a part. So I'm going to treat you like I do Ms. Gaynor. I'm going to be asking you to help us out with these reports. So thank you very much.
And Judge, she has a very beautiful report that she puts together. You should ask her to send you that report that she does, Ms. Brown. I'm sorry, I got to plug you for this one. It's a very detailed
Am I eligible to see it, or is that an in-house thing? I haven't filled out my senior judge paperwork.
It don't have
halfway filled out.
It don't have any specific. It don't have any specific data, just numbers. It's all numbers that you'll be able
Anything
to see.
You want to send me, Ms. Brown, I will read it.
I'll send it to you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, in our last 8 minutes, my favorite part, my next to favorite part. Colonel Holmes, how many juveniles y'all got in detention in your jail, and tell me what you're doing for them while they're in there.
All right, we currently have 10 males at our Paul Ryan facility, 8 Black males, 2 Hispanic males, 0 COVID cases. We had family night was held on November 8th in the second floor visitation area. And there were, out of the 10 males, there were 6 participants that had their families there. So that's a good thing. All educational services are being offered to all of the youth that are housed there. We had 1 minor infraction documented for the month of November, only 1. So that's a good thing. Other than that, there's no issues or concerns at this time.
Any questions of Colonel Holmes with regard to the population of juveniles? I'm glad that number, sometimes around Christmas time, that number has been up to 50 to 75 back in the day. All the juveniles were in custody. So I am going to ask, are y'all doing Christmas programming for them other than the family night?
Yes, they have a Christmas program for
Excellent.
Yeah.
So if they got to be there, try to make it as nice. My philosophy is some of them are there serving sentences. They shouldn't be there, but some of them are just there innocent until proven guilty. So, we have a standard to treat them well, unless and until a jury or a judge has made a finding. When Victor London comes back, just tell him he had 1 in his jail and that I was real upset. Y'all call him and let him know. Since he's not here to report, just tell him there was 1 and that I'm on the warpath. I'm coming to his house. Did you have any questions of Colonel Holmes? All right.
Just on a side note, so everyone knows, tomorrow we have shopping with the sheriff. We have over 200 juveniles that's going to be
Now,
going
what time should I show up in what store?
at the Walmart on 27th and Broward.
Okay.
Be there at 8:45. You'll be early. Start at
Man,
9.
that's too early for me to
It's a
sign
nice
my
gift.
gifts. What's my limit? How much is the sheriff? Did he put a limit on what I get?
Yeah, there's a cap. There's a cap.
Okay. All right.
Overboard.
All right.
Go
Mr.
make sure you
Bush
go in
was
a flat
kind
screen TV area.
yeah, meet me over there. Okay, and Mr. Bush was kind enough to give me his written report, and I had Madam Secretary to forward his report to all of the board members, but I'll let him give a brief synopsis in the 4 minutes that we have left. Mr. Bush, would you like to add anything to your report? I am concerned about 61, but 5 of them are not ours. So
That is correct.
okay, so of the numbers that you have for us, I think you got 55 that belong to us.
That's correct.
Why is the number of black males 44? It's Christmas time. Jeez.
Well, a lot of these also are kids who are pending placement too, Your Honor. So that's another thing. So,
do you have planning for Christmas for those that are there in that facility?
yes, Your Honor. I think the detention center usually puts on a Christmas program every year. So I'm pretty sure Major Rosello is putting something together for the kids. So,
okay, all right. Any questions of? Yes, Chief Officer Bush. That would be Mr. Weeks. He has a question for you.
Madam Chair, I just want to let the advisory board know, the week after Thanksgiving, State Attorney Pryor reached out to me personally. Myself and State Attorney Pryor, along with John James, took a visit of the detention center, just a pop-up. We were actually pleasantly surprised at how clean the facility was. And we had an opportunity to speak with some children and talk about what they did during the holidays. They had visitation, individual visitation, Zoom visitation for those folks that were distanced. And the thing that you also recognize, what we recognize, a lot of those children at the detention center are not our children. They're children from other facilities, and they're children that are pending placement. And one of the things I want to emphasize as an advisory board with DJJ, they have to get these children placed quickly. The longer they're sitting in that facility, the more agitated they become, the more difficult it becomes to manage. And then when you bring other children from other communities to that facility, it becomes very difficult for them to have to manage the issues of kids from other communities being around other kids from this community. So I was concerned about that. We had some conversations about that. Myself and Mr. James are trying to figure out some processes to try to increase the placement of those children. But one thing I do also want to call for, the young ladies in the facility made special mention that they would like to have lotion and/or hair products. So we went out and procured a donation of, I think, about 100 and 200 small airline size lotions and/or body soaps, because
Right.
young ladies want to make sure that they are still maintaining their skin, the hydration in their face. So if we as an advisory board can access those types of things.
Well, you know what? My
Very much
sorority, my chapter is big on that. And I've been collecting samples, but most of the hotels are now going to the lockdown, big bottles. But I will put this first and foremost in my president's ear. And I'll get with the Broward chapter and South Broward. Mr. Bush, are we going to have any problems trying to get lotions and shampoos and stuff to the detention center? Or should I just call you and say, I got a bag of this stuff, meet me, and you can pick it up?
well, that should be no problem. Actually, I'm meeting with Major Rosello tomorrow, so I will let him know, your concerns in reference to the kids getting, proper hygiene products. So I'm pretty sure there would be no issue dropping those things off to detention.
Well, I may run over to the store myself and grab a handful of that stuff. Mr. James, you busy? I may need representation. The smaller bottles cost more than the big bottles. So, All right, we got 2 minutes. Well, actually 1 minute and 39 seconds. Anything for the good of the order, Ms. Mashaba?
Again, my apologies that I was late today. I probably should have. I didn't want to kill the momentum that was going on in the meeting, so I don't want to interrupt it with this follow-up information. And I know you all were discussing civil citation when I popped on, but I did want to update everybody that I have spoken with State Attorney Pryor regarding civil citation with Coconut Creek and Coral Springs. He did meet with the mayor of Coconut Creek, actually along with Dr. Hepburn from the Broward School District. Their goal was to bring to light the concerns that we all have with the school board.
Hold on a second. Let me interrupt you. 30 seconds. Can I get a motion to extend for 5 to 7 minutes? Mr. Weeks has made the motion. Colonel Holmes is second. All right, we're going to 5:07. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So the basis of their conversation had to do with trying to work with school administration in Coconut Creek to try to have them utilize other alternatives to civil citation or even school-based arrest. The mayor is committed to having the community work with law enforcement to incentivize them to use civil citation more. They're supposed to be trying to develop some programs between the school district and law enforcement to have students and law enforcement officers meet in the middle and develop better relationships and try to utilize more amenable school-based solutions. So those are the conversations that State Attorney Pryor has had so far with both Dr. Hepburn and the mayor. As you know, this is an election year as well for the chief of the law enforcement agency, so to be continued with regard to that. And then with regard to Coral Springs Police Department, State Attorney Pryor met with the chief of Coral Springs Police Department. We're planning a meeting between our state attorney, myself, my office to work through data with the chief of Coral Springs Police Department regarding that civil citation data that we're all concerned about every reporting time. And State Attorney Pryor, Madam Chair, is inviting you to appoint a couple of members of this committee, or this CAB rather, to attend that meeting if they want to be a part of that conversation. And we can discuss.
Do you know when the meeting's going to be held?
Yeah, there's no set meeting yet. I'm assuming it's going to be after the holidays, so I can get back with State Attorney Pryor, and perhaps maybe at our next CAB meeting, that could be when you tell me who we might have.
Because I'll take volunteers, but I think I'm going to be one of the people. He only wants a couple. He only wants a couple of people.
He said a couple of members. I mean, I don't know what a couple is, but he said a couple of members, and I can certainly circle back to the board on that. But
Madam Chair, I would suggest Ms. Gaynor, Mr. James, Ms. Ellison, myself.
I was going to suggest Ms. Gaynor as well because of the fact that she's directly with the civil citation program. It's to go over the data and to really take a deep dive so that they can understand what our concerns are and they can tell us theirs, I guess. So I'll get back with State Attorney Pryor. I know we're going into the holidays, so I knew this meeting wasn't probably going to resolve exactly how this next meeting is going to take place with Coral Springs. I'll probably have more of that information at our next CAB meeting.
Well, you did keep your word. You said you would talk to him, and by this meeting, you'd have some information, and you certainly did. And I appreciate that. Any questions of Ms. Mashala before we adjourn? You have 30 seconds, Mr. Obel, to talk trash to me before I mute your mic. There you go.
All I want to say that this Saturday at Markham Elementary, we're going to be doing a Christmas toy drive giveaway for children and families. And already we are expecting 300 families to show up. And we have over 700 children already registered. So just want to.
What time? What time?
It will be from 10 to 2.
Yours is the same time as Pastor Harper's.
Yeah. You know, we all trying to do the good Lord's work.
Okay.
And
trust me, everybody is calling me. Everybody, I got you.
And in February, we will be doing a gun violence forum in Pompano. I believe myself and Mr. Weeks served on last year's board. This year, we'll be leading that cause. So I'll bring more information to the board when that time comes.
Sounds good. Any other announcements? Don't forget tomorrow, go shopping with Sheriff Tony. Meet at 8:45 at the Walmart on 27th and Broward. And your cap is what, $250? Is that what?
Because I didn't hear no, he didn't say no age limit, so I could be there. It's right.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, like Public Defender Week say, you got to stay out of the television aisle, though. You got to.
Yes, Mr. Bush, what you got going on with DJ?
Yes, Madam Chair. You know, if I can have you to do a motion to possibly have my name changed to the correct name.
I didn't put that on there. That whoever.
Just it's
Teves.
That's correct.
And you probably could have changed it yourself, brother, but just send me the correct spelling.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not that tech savvy, so I didn't know.
Okay, so Madam Secretary, you know how to do that?
Correct. Yeah, I got it from somebody else.
Okay, because it does say
it was somebody else. That's what they said.
I kind of like Clovis, though. I'm teasing. No,
so we can change his name.
No, don't change the name. That's 3 generations of that name. So no, don't change that name.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
See the Dolphins on Christmas Eve.
Oh Jesus!
See y'all on Christmas Eve.
I wish all of you a very, very Merry Christmas, and certainly a very prosperous and pleasant New Year. But mostly, I wish above all that you all are safe. Be mindful of your surroundings. We used to say the devil's so busy, but it's just people in general. Yeah. So just be on the lookout and take care of yourselves. Because if something happened to you all, I wouldn't have anything to do on Wednesday, the second Wednesdays from 3 to 5. So I need you. All right. Enjoy your holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.